It's not a secret that in the 90s and the 2000s, Lexus has made some truly remarkable vehicles like the IS300 sedan, the SC Coupe, and even Lexus's flagship LS430 sedan. And at the same time, if you were looking for a rich and elegant family hauler, you'd probably be looking at stuff like the Cadillac Escalade, or even something really big like an RV. But of course, Lexus even considered this market back then. So today, I'm very happy to present to you the almighty LX 470. And today I'm also going to talk about why these things are still so expensive. If you think that this LX is a bit of badge engineering, the LX 450 wasn't really much different from the Land Cruiser. The main differences were the front grille, the wheels, a slightly softer suspension system, and to make it more luxurious, of course, some more leather and sound deadening on the inside. Back in the day, the LX 450 was intended to compete with the likes of other full-size Luxo SUVs, like the renowned Range Rover, Acura's SLX, which was based on the Isuzu Trooper, and honestly, at this point, there really wasn't that much competition out there. And even though the LX 450 was a popular contender in that segment, it was deemed underpowered by many journalists and even consumers, which resulted in the end of the LX 450 for the 1997 model year. As we moved to 1998, Lexus introduced the all-new, bigger, more capable, and more powerful 8-cylinder powered LX 470. Now these are based on the 100 series Land Cruiser, and by this time Lexus implemented a lot of technologies on the LS sedan, the GS sedan, and all other Lexuses, and combined it into one large SUV. And you can see the design language with the quad headlights from the GS 430, the elegant grille from the LS 400 and LS 430, and also Lexus added a lot of safety features from the LS 430 as well. It's interesting though, even though this is based on the Toyota Land Cruiser, some markets have this face, this Lexus face, still marketed as the Toyota Land Cruiser, but the Toyota Land Cruiser Cygnus. This new LX lost but also gained quite a bit of off-road capability compared to the 80 series. The old Land Cruiser had a solid front axle and the option of a front, center, and rear locking differential. Triple lock. That's really rare. These 100 series LXs at first did come with the option of a rear locker for 98 and 2000, but in 2000 Lexus introduced A-Track, their off-road traction control system. 2003 to me is the first year of the desirable LX though, because this was the first year that you got the 5-speed automatic transmission, a slightly revised front bumper, and most importantly, the interior was completely redesigned to follow the Land Cruiser. And finally, in 2005, for the 2006 model year, the LX was given its last facelift, and to me, the most desirable facelift, because now it got VVTi, which boosted power from 235 horsepower to 275 horsepower in this. Things outside were slightly tweaked a little bit more. Most importantly, we got the addition of my favorite LED taillights on this 100 series Land Cruiser, and Lexus really made this the best version of the LX 470 to kick off the final 2 years. Now this pretty thing sitting next to me belongs to my friend Lewis. It's a 2006 LX 470 in galactic gray metallic. It's a sharp looking color, but the MSRP of this one as it sits right next to me when it was new in 06 was about $72,000, which is a little bit over 100K nowadays. So it's pretty similar to a new LX 600. This one is sitting at a hair over 200,000 miles, and even though it is high mileage, Lewis has extensively refreshed this LX to make it feel like a brand new truck. It's so stock, it still has the active height control that uses hydraulic fluid to raise and lower this. It is expensive to maintain, but this one is still in great condition. Lexus only offered the LX 470 in one configuration as we see it here, and the base price of an 06 470 in 06 was about $67,000, which again is about $100,000 in nowadays money. Instead of offering actual trim levels for the LX, Lexus offered a handful of options that you could choose in the catalog, like a rear entertainment system with DVD players in the headrest for $2,200, a front night vision camera with a heads-up display for $2,400. That's a really hard to find option nowadays. And of course, some body pieces like the roof rack for $300 and also the spoiler for $300 as well. I don't know if any of you have noticed already, but this one also has the optional gold badges that you could get from Lexus when they were new. These were about $500 for the option. As you can see, even from pretty much the beginning, Lexus only offered the LX in one configuration as we see it here, and only with one engine option. It is quite the upgrade compared to the LX 450, and this is also why many of these are still on the road today because of this excellent engine. So this, my friends, is the venerable and dependable 2UZ FE. It's a 4.7 liter dual overhead cam V8. It's so good that Toyota put this in all their trucks. The V8 4th Gen 4Runner, the 1st Gen Toyota Sequoia, of course the Land Cruiser, the 1st Gen Tundra. They really use this engine in everything, and it is for good reason. In this case, because of the addition of variable valve timing in 06, this 2UZ makes 275 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Very good numbers. Of course, it's not really that fast because this is almost 5,000 pounds, but we'll talk about how this engine moves this mass in a little bit. And again, from 03 on, this engine is solely paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission and full-time 4-wheel drive for all LXs and all Land Cruisers as well. And because this is a Propofol by Full, this uses a dual range transfer case with a high and low range. And this also uses A-Track, which is Toyota's advanced traction control system specifically designed for off-road. This was also available in the 4Runners and Tacomas of this same vintage, but it's such a good terrain management system. But if you want to see an LX 470 off-road, let me know in the comments below. And let Lewis know too. In a way, you could say I have refrained from saying the MPG numbers until now. Lexus rated the LX 470 in 2006, this ultra-low emissions V8 SUV, for 12 in the city, 15 on the highway, and a combined rating of 13. Those are actually, unfortunately, accurate numbers because the trip computer on this one says it's getting about 13 as well. And if you hand calculate it, it gets about the same. But honestly, not that much goes wrong with these 4.7s. They use timing belts, so definitely remember to replace that every 100,000 miles or 10 years or earlier. And everything else, of course, it's just normal maintenance. But there's no real fault points with this powertrain. And on the side of the LX, you might think that it is quite a big SUV. And it is. It's sitting at 192 inches long. But it actually is 5 inches shorter than the LS 430 that this was out with at the same time. And in terms of wheel options, Lexus was also pretty conservative with the wheel designs on the LX as well. The older models will get an 18-inch alloy wheel, like the 03 to 05, and then 06 and 07 got this 18-inch wheel. Some of them were in a dark graphite color, and others were in this chrome like this one. And I actually kind of like the chrome. Something for third-row passengers that I found interesting about the LX are the power folding third-row windows. Of course, they don't slide down like the second or first row, but it's nice that you don't have to manually open them yourself. There's a button by the steering wheel that lets you pop them open. Now, another power amenity that I like about the LX 470 are the power folding mirrors. You can just fold them in by the push of a button. And this makes it narrower for not only your garage, but also for navigating tight trails as well in the Amazon forest. The forest. Now, one of the other places that I find the LX 470 quite appealing is the trunk, because it is very practical. Now, just like me at this point, you're probably like, damn, this is one nice truck. And all the things that this has and more are reasons that I not only like the LX 470 quite a bit, but they're also reasons that I cross-shop this and my XC90. Although I still bought the XC90, I still like this, and this trunk is way bigger. First of all, just like the XC90, you still get a split tailgate, which I think is one of the best inventions that this planet could get. I like these split tailgates so much because it opens up a world of opportunities for even more fun. And if you live around here, these make for great shelters for impromptu rainstorms on your lunch break. So Lewis actually has two LXs. This one is his other one. It's an 04 LX 470 with about 170K. This one is lifted. This one does have the third row in it, and I put it down so you could see the 19 cubic feet of volume behind the third row seat. And as you can see, they can fold up and out of the way, but I would still prefer to just remove them. And then you get up to 55 cubic feet of volume. And if you fold that second row down, which is a 60-40 split, you get up to 90 cubic feet of volume. That's really big. Also, I wanted to talk about the rear seat of these LXs. First of all, Lexus makes getting into the third row pretty easy. There's two levers. There's first this one that reclines the second row seat forwards and backwards. You just drop the back of the seat. And then there's another lever in front of the seat that lets you tumble it. This one is heavy because it's the 60 side. And now you have pretty easy access into the third row. And so you guys can see me, I thought it would be easier to have both seats folded. And this is, well, if you have this third row out and then you have this one folded flat, you have that 90 cubic feet of volume. But we can get in here and you can see, I'll put this side down and chop your feet off, and I'll pull this up. The third row in these LXs really isn't that huge, and you do notice it. It's mostly in legroom. Because this is a truck, my knees are really up high because of that solid rear axle. At least the bottom of the seat is comfortable. The back is pretty comfortable too. And this third row seat does recline. I'm 5'9" and I have headroom. My hair doesn't even touch the ceiling because it's a box, it's nice, and I'm not wedged up against the back glass like how you are in a GX 470. So it's not terrible. There are a few accommodations, just so you guys can see me. There are a few accommodations back here. There's these two compartments where kids can hide candy wrappers and things, which is annoying. And on my side, you can see there's a cup holder here, and I was surprised there's an ashtray for the third row passengers as well. So you can have everyone in your LX smoking. To get rid of that smoke though, there is a climate control zone in the third row. The controls are up here, which is weird. It's for the third row, but that's okay. There's also 3 air vents, so I won't be overheating or hotboxing in the back of the LX. Thankfully, because of the running boards, even though this one is lifted 2.5 inches, it's still pretty easy to get into the rear seat of the 470. You can see the door opens pretty wide, and getting in is also pretty easy as well. Now, the second row, of course, will feel much nicer than the third row, thankfully. The bottom is softer, the back is softer, but it's really accommodating, and because the LX is so big, me at my 5'9" stature, you could see the seat is in my position and I have great legroom, can fit my feet. Well, yeah, I can fit my feet under the seat, and because it's a box, of course, great headroom. And again, they do recline. It's a 60-40 split. There's also this armrest here, which is pretty soft, but on the backside of the center console, there are some audio controls for the rear entertainment system. Even if you didn't have the rear entertainment, the rear seat passengers could listen to CDs that are playing in the front. This one has an aftermarket DVD player in it, but to my recollection, the OEM system was actually in the headrest, but this one is some early 2000s thing. I really don't know if any of these things work anymore, but I guess it's cool to have, but in mine, I wouldn't have it. And in this case, in the second row, there's ashtrays on both rear doors. Now, unlike the LS430 at the time that could get a smart key access system, which you could unlock and lock the doors by grabbing or pushing a button on the door handle, and you didn't have to even think about taking the key out of your pocket, Lexus still thought of the traditional truck buyer, I guess, and we still wanted a normal design of key. So this is the key fob for the LX in this era. Lexus's typical 3-button key with the blade, but no smart key or nub that starts the car inside. But it's very easy to get in because of the running boards, and you can see that the interior is in pretty good shape. It's pretty enticing to get inside, huh? Welcome to the interior of the LX 470. It's very nice in here. So we can get this showboat on the road, we can put our normal key into the ignition and start the thing to go. This is, to me, the peak of Toyota and Lexus. Nowadays, but everything still feels really well put together in here. Nothing creaks or rattles or makes any yucky, crunchy sounds. All LXs get a 4-spoke leather-wrapped wheel with wood as well, but this one is aftermarket. The leather bolsters are a little bit thicker. This is an eBay steering wheel. I think it's about 300 bucks, and you could put this on any Toyota with this steering wheel on it. I actually really like how it feels, more than the other wheel. It still retains all the factory buttons for the audio and Bluetooth controls, as well as the cruise control stock. Behind the steering wheel, you'll see that the headlights are automatic, and because this one is a refreshed LX, the windshield wipers are also automatic as well. We can listen to the horn. Good sounding horn. It echoes around here, and as we look up at the gauges, you'll see that they're pretty simple, but a nice classy truck look for the LX. John Davis would be happy to see a voltmeter, but other than that, we just have the normal necessities like the fuel gauge, coolant temp gauge, and oil pressure. And again, like I said, the buttons to open and close those rear vent windows are on the left side of the steering wheel, alongside the RSCA off button that turns off the side curtain airbags when you're off-roading. And of course, one of my favorite buttons in here, the button for the power folding mirrors. Towards the center, you can see the head unit for the LX. This is the stock head unit. It is pretty different compared to the new LX's screens everywhere, but I like this more. It's more condensed. There are buttons, hard touch buttons on the left side of the screen, and for being an old system, it's actually not that slow. I've not had any real complications with it, although I haven't used the built-in GPS in this because I'd rather just use my phone, but there are aftermarket kits out there that let you use this screen and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This does have a digital climate control system. It is automatic as well, but it only seems like it's dual zone or single zone because there's only a temperature control for just me, or I guess both people up front here. All the other controls for the climate are embedded into the head unit itself. So if this goes bad, like it does on some of these older Lexuses, you can't really do anything to change how fast the climate is or anything, unless if you use the auto and temp button, which is actually still pretty smart. Below that are the controls for the Mark Levinson audio system, which sounds pretty good in this one. The 80 series Land Cruisers also did this, but you can raise and lower the antenna depending on, I guess, trees. It makes it helpful so you can listen to the news or the weather while you're out in the middle of the brush. Underneath all that, there is actually an ashtray in this LX. Lexus does want you to smoke in your LX, and the rear has ashtrays as well for the children or the homies. Because of the ashtray, there's a cigarette lighter and a normal 12-volt power outlet on the right side of that. Now you can see the controls for the active height control. This is a variable adaptive suspension. There's 4 settings for the ride. You can go between comfort and sport. We'll talk about how well it works in a little bit. This is also the button to raise and lower all 4 corners of the LX as well. But if you don't want any of the height control nonsense on, you can turn it off as well with this button. Here's the shifter for the 5-speed automatic. It's very smooth transmission. We'll again talk about that in a little bit. But when you put the LX into reverse, this does have a backup camera, which is actually pretty clear, but there aren't guidance lines that steer with the wheel or anything like that. But this is all that anyone I know would need. On the right of the transmission shifter, you can see the selector for the high and low range transfer case. Just to clarify, before you put your LX into low range, you have to make sure that you're in neutral, and then you can go into low range, or else you'll have some binding and an upset powertrain. Behind that, there are two pretty wide but shallow cup holders, and then there's an armrest for each side, the driver and passenger, that is adjustable, thankfully. And there's also another soft armrest, which reveals two levels of center console. You either have the upper level or the lower level, which has the CD player, the multi-disc player. It was a 6-disc CD changer, but of course it wasn't in the trunk like 90s cars or in the glove box. They put it in here. There's also another 12-volt power outlet inside of here, but it's actually a reasonable amount of storage in here. Now I'd like to talk about the seats. They're very comfortable in the LX. The bottoms are very soft. Both seats have full range of power adjustments with power lumbar as well. Both the driver and passenger side seats are heated too. Of course, this is not a sporty SUV, this is a truck, and they're more trucky-like seats, but they hold me nice. It's like a nice soft hand holding my back. And of course, as we look up top, this has an auto-dimming rearview mirror. This one also has the Lexus Link system. It was one of the first few Lexuses to do that. It's like an OnStar type of thing. There's also Garage Home Link and a pretty big Tundra-sized power moonroof. So welcome to the LX 470 experience. This thing is so smooth. Dang, at least while I have this line of cars I'm waiting for, we can just talk about how nice the interior is. I have the auto climate on at 66 right now. I am oozing luxury right now. I feel very comfortable. Now that there's an opening, we can see how this 4.7 is. This thing isn't a speed demon. This thing isn't made for speed, but I mean, it got to 50 very fine. It's smooth power, it's effortless power. I really don't have anything to complain about it. I like how quiet the engine is, and this 5-speed is tuned pretty well. Now, we're driving the LX. One of these reasons that they're very nice to drive is how small the turning circle is, but we can see the power. I mean, it gets up to speed very quickly, very nice. It's not a quick SUV, but the power is very strong and consistent, and wow, Riptide Blue. And it's just a really nice surge of power. The powertrain is not designed for speed. This is not a sporty SUV. In normal day-to-day driving, the LX is really refined as well. I really don't feel what the transmission is doing. The shifts are buttery smooth, especially this one has all new like mounts and everything, so it feels nice and tight. The only thing about this one is it has all-terrains on it that are pretty noisy. They're not as loud as like some of the other tires I've heard, but they kind of alter the experience, the ultra luxury experience of this truck. But at highway speeds, you can really see that this thing floats along the road. Again, I'm in comfort mode right now. Later on, we'll see what sport mode does. I have tried it before, and I can say it does work. It's interesting, but again, don't have any high expectations. This is not a sporty SUV at all. But again, the powertrain is really smooth. You can barely hear the engine. It's funny, the tires are louder than the engine on this thing, but the steering has a nice feel to it. This has the variable steering system. At low speeds in parking lots or at slower maneuvers, the steering becomes a little bit lighter, but at higher speeds, the steering gets a little bit more direct and a little bit heavier. I like that. I like that the weight also changes too. It makes this big SUV, I mean, it still feels large on the road, but it doesn't make it feel too cumbersome. It gives it a nice tight feeling. The suspension again takes bumps so well. In comfort mode, it feels a little bit floaty sometimes, especially when the road is kind of wavy. But if you want it to just eliminate the floats, I would put it in that middle setting, and then it makes the suspension a little bit more taut, but also a supple ride. Most of the time, most people will be driving them on the road, but I and maybe the other 1% or whatever will be driving them off the road. But on the road here, thankfully the road opens up a little bit, and I can, I guess, put myself into sport mode, and you can actually notice a difference. The steering becomes a little bit more responsive, and also it floats a lot less. It becomes, I wouldn't say jittery, but a lot harsher. Oh wow, a state park. We can see what's around here. Take this corner. Now, of course, it's big and it does have like some body movement, but it's not bad. I'm gonna make a U-turn here though, because this guy in front of me is going so slow. Thankfully, the turning circle on these is actually pretty tight. It feels tighter than my XC90. We can see the power. Yeah, it's good, but like it's scary. I mean, it's not scary, but it's it feels like a handful when you start to try to throw it around corners. It's like, oh, every time I kind of take a corner with this, I mean, not fast and not in a sporty manner, I'm pleasantly surprised that it just holds the road very well. The full-time four-wheel drive is great, not only in the dry, but of course on the wet or on the snow as well. So it's just a perfect all-around SUV, and the sight lines are great. I love how big the windows are. You can see everything. It's really nice. The mirrors are big, and it doesn't feel that big. Even though it looks really big outside, it doesn't feel like a cumbersome thing. I honestly think the Sequoia feels bigger. And that, my friends, was a gander at one of my all-time favorite SUVs and one of my dream SUVs. I know I really like my XC90, but this is like the number 2. What I really like about these is the level of refinement, luxury, off-road capability, and reliability that you get in one really nice looking package. And even though this is an old truck to nowadays standards, you still kind of look like you have some money, especially if you're driving a nice LX like this one. But I appreciate you watching. Let me know if you have an LX or a Land Cruiser or a GX or a 4Runner or any Toyota truck in the comments below, or any vehicle that you own at that matter. But thank you all for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Remember to hit the notification bell, because YouTube doesn't seem to be doing a good job at pushing out notifications, so you know when I post a video. But enough of me rambling. Thank you again for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, peeps.